Hello everyone, welcome to NEET 2017 Physics Solutions. Let us see question number 1. Consider a drop of rainwater having a mass 1 gram falling from a height of 1 kilometer. It hits the ground with a speed of 50 meter per second, taking g constant and a value of 10 meter per second square. Find the work done by gravitational force, resistive force of air. As we know, work done by gravitational force is nothing but mgh. So from the given data, mass of the raindrop is 1 gram, g is taken to be 10 and it is falling from a height of 1 kilometer. So the work done by gravitational force comes out to be 10 joule. Now in order to find work done by resistive force of air, we need to apply work energy theorem here. W net equal to delta K, that is change in kinetic energy. Since the raindrop starts from rest, initial kinetic energy is 0. It has a final velocity of 50 meter per second. So the change in kinetic energy comes out to be 1.25 joule. Now there are two forces doing work on the raindrop as it is coming down. It is gravitational force and air resistance. So work done by gravitational force plus work done by air resistance is equal to change in kinetic energy, that is 1.25 joule. Work done by gravitational force, as we already found, is 10 joule plus work done by air resistance equal to 1.25. From there we obtain work done by air resistance equal to minus 8.75 joule. Coming to question number 2. A 250 turn rectangular coil of length 2.1 cm and width 1.25 cm carries a current of 85 microampere and is subjected to a magnetic field of strength 0.85 Tesla. Work done in rotating the coil by 180 degrees against the torque is. As you can see from the given data, let us calculate magnetic moment of the coil given by the formula IAN, where I is current flowing through the coil, A is area of the coil and N is the number of turns. By substituting the values, we get the magnetic moment of the coil to be 5.58 into 10 power minus 6 ampere meter square. Work done in rotating the coil is given by the formula mb of cos theta 1 minus cos theta 2. So magnetic moment just now we calculated to be 5.58 into 10 power minus 6. The magnetic field strength is 0.85 Tesla. It is rotated by an angle 180. So theta 1 is 0, theta 2 is 180. So by the calculation we obtain work done equal to 9.5 microjoule. Let us see third question. Two polarites P1 and P2 are placed with their axes perpendicular to each other. Unpolarized light I0 is incident on P1. A third Polaroid P3 is kept between P1 and P2 such that its axis makes an angle 45 degrees with that of P1. The intensity of transmitted light through P2 is. As you can see, the intensity of unpolarized light is given to be I0. Once it passes through P1, it undergoes polarization and its intensity becomes half of the initial value, that is I0 by 2. Then this falls on the second polarizer, that is P3. Now we have to use Malus theorem to calculate the intensity of light transmitted by P3. That is intensity of light transmitted by any polarizer is equal to intensity of light incident on the polarizer into cos square phi. So the intensity of light incident on second polarizer is I0 by 2. The angle is 45. So it comes out to be I0 by 4. Now this I0 by 4 is incident on the third polarizer. By applying the same formula, we get the final intensity of the emitted light will be I0 by 8. Coming to question number 4. Radioactive material A has a decay constant 8 lambda and material B has a decay constant lambda. Initially they have the same number of nuclei. After what time the ratio of number of nuclei of material B to that of A will be 1 by E. The number of nuclei at any time t is given by n equal to n0 e power minus lambda t, where n0 is the initial number of nuclei, lambda is decay constant, n is the number of nuclei active at this time. If you write this formula for A and B separately, you get NA equal to N0 e power minus 8 lambda t, NB equal to N0 e power minus lambda t. Take the ratio should be equal to 1 by E. So when you simplify, we get T equal to 1 by 7 lambda. Let us say question number 5. A Carnot engine having an efficiency of 1 by 10 as a heat engine is used as a refrigerator. If the work done on the system is 10 joule, the amount of energy absorbed from the reservoir at low temperature is. Here, the Carnot engine has an efficiency of 1 by 10 as a heat engine. From there, let us see the relation between efficiency and coefficient of performance. We can write the formula as beta equal to 1 minus eta by eta, where beta is coefficient of performance and eta is efficiency. So from the calculation, beta comes out to be 9. The coefficient of performance can also be written as the ratio of heat absorbed from cold reservoir to work done on the substance. So 9 equal to Q2 by 10, that comes out to be 90 joule. A particle executes linear simple harmonic motion with an amplitude of 3 cm. When the particle is at 2 cm from mean position, the magnitude of its velocity is equal to that of acceleration. Then time period in seconds is. We know the velocity of a simple harmonic oscillator is given by the formula V equal to omega root a square minus x square, where omega is angular frequency, a is amplitude, x is the position of the particle. And acceleration of the simple harmonic oscillator is given by the formula a equal to omega square x. Since it is given that the magnitude of velocity is equal to acceleration, we can equate these two to obtain omega equal to root 5 by 2. Since omega can be written as 2 pi by t, we get t equal to 4 pi by root 5 seconds. The ratio of resolving power of an optical microscope for two wavelengths lambda 1 4000 Armstrong units and lambda 2 6000 Armstrong units is. Resolving power of an optical microscope is given by R equal to 2 mu sin theta by lambda. Here, mu is refractive index of the medium between object and objective lens. Theta is the angle made by radius of the objective lens at the object. Now the resolving power of microscope, as you can see, is inversely proportional to wavelength. The ratio of resolving powers will be R1 by R2 equal to lambda 2 by lambda 1. That comes out to be 3:2. In a common emitter transistor amplifier, the audio signal voltage across the collector is 3 volt. The resistance of the collector is 3 kilo ohm. If the current gain is 100 and base resistance is 2 kilo ohm, the voltage and power gain of the amplifier are. As you can see, it is a common emitter transistor amplifier. Since emitter is common to both input and output terminals, the input will be base and output will be collector. So the voltage gain of the transistor is given by output voltage by input voltage, that is collector voltage by base voltage. Voltage can be written as current into resistance. So VC by VB can be taken as IC/RC by IB/RB. IC by IB, that is current gain beta, is given, and RC by RB is also given. So from there we get voltage gain equal to 100 into 3 by 2, that is 150. Now the power gain of the amplifier is simply voltage gain multiplied with current gain, that comes out to be 15,000. Two cars moving in opposite directions approach each other with a speed of 22 meter per second and 16.5 meter per second respectively. The driver of the first car blows a horn having a frequency of 400 Hz. The frequency heard by the driver of the second car is. Given speed of sound 340 meter per second. Here you can see the two cars are approaching each other, so that is equivalent to observer and source moving towards each other. When both of them are moving towards each other, the observer will listen a higher frequency. The formula is given by f dash equal to f of v plus v naught by v minus vs. So by substituting the given values, we get the frequency heard by the observer 448.4 Hz. Two astronauts are floating in gravity-free space after having lost contact with their spaceship. The two will. As the astronauts lost contact in gravity-free space, so there is no force acting on the astronauts whatsoever. So they keep moving at the same distance between them. A gas mixture consists of 2 moles of oxygen and 4 moles of argon at temperature T. Neglecting all vibrational modes, the total internal energy of the system is. A diatomic gas has 5 degrees of freedom, so the internal energy of n moles of diatomic gas is given by 5 by 2 nRT. So since there is 2 moles of oxygen gas, the value comes out to be 5 RT. Then an monoatomic gas will have 3 degrees of freedom, so its internal energy is given by 3 by 2 nRT. 4 moles of argon gas is there, so the total internal energy is 6 RT. So the final internal energy of the system is the internal energy of oxygen gas plus argon gas, that comes out to be 11 RT. The acceleration due to gravity at a height 1 km above the earth is same as that at a depth d below the surface of the earth. Then, since the given height is 1 km, which is negligible as compared to the radius of the earth, that is 6400 kilometers, we can apply approximate formula for variation of acceleration due to gravity with respect to height, that is gh equal to g of 1 minus 2h by r. Since h is 1 km, we get it as g of 1 minus 2 by r. Variation of g with respect to depth, gd equal to g of 1 minus d by r. Since these two values are given to be same, equate both the equations to get d equal to 2 km. A capacitor is charged by a battery. The battery is removed and another identical uncharged capacitor is connected in parallel. The total electrostatic energy of the resulting system. The energy stored by a capacitor is given by the formula half CV square. Now, when we connect two capacitors in parallel, the charge will flow between two capacitors till the capacitors attain common potential, that is given by the formula V common equal to C1V1 plus C2V2 by C1 plus C2. Putting the given values in the formula, we get common potential as V by 2. Now the final energy stored in the system is half CV square again. Here C is 2C as the two capacitors are connected in parallel. V common just now we have calculated, that comes out to be V by 2. So we get final energy stored in the system as 1 by 4 CV square. As we take the ratio of the final to initial energies, we get U final to U initial equal to 1 by 2. So the electrostatic energy of the system reduces by a factor of 2. A rope is wound around a hollow cylinder of mass 3 kg and radius 40 cm. What is the angular acceleration of the cylinder if the rope is pulled with a force of 30 Newton? As you can see, the torque acting on the cylinder tau equal to R into F. So from that we get torque acting on the cylinder equal to 12 Newton meter. The moment of inertia of the cylinder is mr square. Since it is a hollow cylinder, then that comes out to be 0.48 kg meter square. Now by applying the relation tau equal to I alpha, we get alpha, the angular acceleration of the cylinder, as 25 radian per second square. A long solenoid of diameter 0.1 meter had 2 into 10 power 4 turns per meter. At the center of the solenoid, a coil of 100 turns and radius 0.01 meter is placed with its axis coinciding with the solenoid axis. The current in the solenoid reduces at a constant rate to 0 ampere from 4 ampere in 0.05 seconds. If the resistance of the coil is 10 pi square ohm, the total charge flowing through the coil during this time is. You can have a look at the given data. They can write the magnitude of induced EMF in a circular coil is given by the formula E equal to N d phi by dt. From there, the current flowing through the coil I equal to E by R, that is N d phi by dt into 1 by R. We can write current as rate of flow of charge. So I is dq by dt. So we get dq by dt equal to N by R d phi by dt. Cancelling dt on both sides, we get dq equal to N times d phi by R. As you can see, phi the flux can be written as B to A, where magnetic field induction B and A is area of the circular coil. So by putting the constants out of differentiation, finally we get N mu naught A small n by R into di. Applying integration on both sides, we get integral dq is nothing but delta q, integral di is nothing but delta I. So finally we get the charge flowing through the coil as 32 microcoulomb. One end of a string of length L is connected to a particle of mass m, and the other end is connected to a small peg on a smooth horizontal table. If the particle moves in a circle with a speed v, the net force acting on the particle directed towards the center of the circle will be. Here T represents tension in the string. As we can see, in order to move any particle in a circular path, we require to apply centripetal force. As the table is frictionless here, the only force acting on the particle towards the center of the circular path is nothing but tension in the string. So the tension in the string is the net force acting on the particle directed towards center of the circular path. A thin prism having refracting angle 10 degrees is made of glass of refractive index 1.42. This prism is combined with another thin prism of glass of refractive index 1.7. This combination produces dispersion without deviation. The refracting angle of the second prism should be. The given condition, the combination should be producing dispersion without any deviation. So the net deviation should be 0. The deviation produced by a prism is given by delta equal to mu minus 1 of A. So the deviation produced by first prism is mu1 minus 1 of A1, and that of the second prism is mu2 minus 1 of A2. So by substituting the given values, we get A2 equal to 6 degree. The ratio of wavelengths of last line of Balmer series and last line of Lyman series is. The wavelength of light emitted by electron transition in hydrogen atom is given by the formula 1 by lambda equal to R of 1 by n initial square minus 1 by n final square, where R is Rydberg constant. For Balmer series, the electron has to jump from higher energy orbit to n equal to 2. Since it is series limit of Balmer series, the electron should be coming from infinity. So we get 1 by lambda Balmer equal to R by 4. For Lyman series, the electron should be coming from higher energy orbit to n equal to 1. Again, it is a series limit of Lyman series, so it is electron is coming from infinity to n equal to 1. So we get 1 by lambda Lyman equal to R. Taking the ratio, we get the answer to be 4. The two nearest harmonics of a tube closed at one end and open at the other end are 220 Hz and 260 Hz. What is the fundamental frequency of the system? As you can see, the tube is closed at one end and open at the other end. It is a closed organ pipe. And the frequency of a closed organ pipe is given by 2n plus 1 of V by 4L. In a closed organ pipe, only odd harmonics are present. So the difference between two consecutive harmonics can be written as V by 2L, that is equal to 260 minus 220, coming out to be 40 Hz. Now the fundamental frequency is V by 4L, so it comes out to be 20 Hz. A physical quantity of dimensions of length that can be formed out of C capital G and E square by 4 pi epsilon naught is. Here C is speed of light, G universal gravitational constant, and E is charge. Let us write the dimensional formulas of given quantities one by one. C is speed of light, so it is speed L(t power minus 2). Then universal gravitational constant capital G is m power minus 1 L cube T power minus 2. Coming to the dimensional formula of E square by 4 pi epsilon naught. Upon substituting the given values, we get m power minus 1 L power minus 3 T square. The dimensional formula of length is L, so the final answer should be L. So we can go for option verification method and see which of the following options gives the final value as L. That comes out to be second option. The photoelectric threshold wavelength of silver is 3250 into 10 power minus 10 meter. The velocity of electron ejected from silver surface by ultraviolet light of wavelength 2536 into 10 power minus 10 meter is given h equal to 4.14 into 10 power minus 15 electron volt and C 3 into 10 power 8 meter per second. Let us write the Einstein's photoelectric equation in terms of wavelength and velocity. E equal to 5 plus half ma square. Energy of incident radiation can be written as hc by lambda and hc by lambda naught plus half ma square. By rearranging the terms, we get velocity of the electron ejected is 6 into 10 power 5 meter per second. I suggest the students take some time by pausing the video and go through the calculation process clearly. Suppose the charge of a proton and an electron differ slightly. One of them is minus E and the other is E plus delta E. If the net electrostatic force and gravitational force between two hydrogen atoms placed at a distance d, which is much greater than the atomic size, is 0, then delta E is of the order of, given mass of hydrogen atom, 1.67 into 10 power minus 27 kg. This is a calculation oriented problem. You know the gravitational force between 2 point masses is given by the formula F equal to G times m1 m2 by d square. You substitute the known values, that is capital G and masses. Now coming to the electrostatic force between two hydrogen atoms. It is given that the charge on proton is slightly greater than that on the electron. So the total charge carried by hydrogen atom is given by minus E for charge on electron, E plus delta E for charge on proton. So the net charge of hydrogen atom comes out to be delta E. Then substituting these values in electrostatic force formula, we can calculate electrostatic force since it is given that gravitational force and electrostatic forces are equal as the net force is 0. By equating these two forces, we get the value of delta E to be of the order of 10 power minus 37. An arrangement of three parallel straight wires placed perpendicular to plane of paper carrying same current I along the same direction is as shown in figure. The resistance of a wire is R ohm. If it is melted and stretched to n times its original length, the new resistance will be. Resistance of a wire is given by rho L by A. Multiply and divide with length, you will get rho L square by V, where V is volume of the conductor. Since volume of the conductor is constant and rho is a constant value, I can write R is proportional to L square. So the resistance of a conductor is directly proportional to square of the length. By applying this formula, we get the final resistance equal to n square times initial value. A beam of light from a source L is incident normally on a plane mirror fixed at certain distance x from the source. The beam is reflected back as a spot on a scale placed just above the source L. When the mirror is rotated through a small angle theta, the spot of light is found to move through a distance y on the scale. The angle theta is given by. As we know, when the mirror is rotated by an angle theta without disturbing the incident ray, the reflected ray gets rotated by 2 theta. Since here the angle is small, we can apply small angle approximation, that is sin theta equal to tan theta, that is equal to theta. So by applying the tan theta formula, tan 2 theta is opposite side by adjacent side, so that is y by x. From there 2 theta equal to y by x, theta equal to y by 2x. A spring of force constant K is cut into 3 parts with length ratio 1:2:3. They are connected in series. The new force constant is found to be K dash. When they are connected in parallel, the force constant is K double dash. Then the ratio K dash to K double dash is. Series combination of springs, the formula can be written as 1 by K series equal to 1 by K1 plus 1 by K2 so on 1 by Kn. So here, since the length ratio is 1:2:3, I can write 1 by K dash equal to 1 by x plus 1 by 2x plus 1 by 3x. From there we get K dash equal to 6x by 11. Similarly, for parallel combination of springs, the effective force constant K equal to K1 plus K2 plus so on Kn. Here it is K double dash equal to x plus 2x plus 3x, that is comes out to be 6x. The ratio K dash to K double dash is 1:11. The diagrams below show the regions of equipotentials. A positive charge is moved from A to B in each diagram. Then, here we are asked to calculate about work done in moving the charged particle from point A to point B in every field. As we can see, point A in every diagram is at 10 volts and point B is at 40 volts. Since these are equipotential surfaces, the field is electrostatic field. Electrostatic field is a conservative field. Work done by electrostatic force is independent of path taken by the particle. Every case, the particle is being moved from A to B, so in each case work done is same. The de Broglie wavelength of a neutron in thermal equilibrium with heavy water at a temperature T Kelvin is. The de Broglie wavelength of a particle is given by lambda equal to h by p, where p is momentum, which can be written as root of 2mk. So the de Broglie wavelength is h by root of 2mk. Now k is kinetic energy here, which can be replaced with 3 by 2 kt. In this formula, K is Boltzmann's constant and capital T is absolute temperature. By substituting this value in the original formula, we get lambda equal to h by root of 3m kt. Young's double slit experiment is performed first in air and then in a medium other than air. It is found that 8th bright fringe in the medium lies where 5th dark fringe lies in air. The refractive index of the medium nearly is. The wavelength of light in a given medium is given by the formula lambda by mu, where mu is refractive index of the medium. Distance of nth bright band can be written as n lambda d by d, while distance of nth dark band can be written as 2n plus 1 lambda d by 2d, where capital D is the separation between slits and the screen, while small d is the separation between the two slits. Since the given condition, that is 8th bright band, coincides with the 5th dark band, if we substitute those values, we get mu equal to 1.78. A U-tube with both sides open to atmosphere is partially filled with water. Oil, which is immiscible with water, is poured into one side until it stands at a distance of 10 mm above water level on the other side. Meanwhile, water rises by 65 mm from the original level. The density of oil is. Since both ends of the U-tube are open to the atmosphere, the pressure at the open ends is same, that is equal to atmospheric pressure. As you can see from the diagram, the points B and C are at the same horizontal level. So, the pressure at B should be equal to pressure at C. The pressure can be written as atmospheric pressure plus H rho g. So, pressure at B is P atmosphere plus H oil rho oil g, while pressure at C equal to atmospheric pressure plus H water rho water g. So, from there we can find the density of the oil to be 928 kg per meter cube. In an electromagnetic wave in free space, the root mean square value of electric field is 6 volt per meter. The peak value of magnetic field is. The relation between electric field intensity and magnetic field induction is given by C equal to E by B, where C is the speed of light in vacuum, that is 3 into 10 power 8 meter per second. Since RMS value of electric field is given to be 6 volt per meter, we can find the RMS value of magnetic field to be ERMS by C, that comes out to be 2 into 10 power minus 8 Tesla. Now the peak value, also known as the maximum value of magnetic field, is root 2 times RMS value. So it is 2 root 2 into 10 power minus 8. Upon simplification, that comes out to be 2.83 into 10 power minus 8 Tesla. A spherical black body with radius 12 centimeters radiates 450 watt power at 500 K. If the radius were halved and the temperature is doubled, the power radiated in watt would be. The surface area of a spherical body is given by 4 pi r square. The power radiated by black body is given by the formula P equal to sigma A T power 4, where sigma is Stefan Boltzmann's constant. As you can see, the power radiated is directly proportional to square of radius, and it is also directly proportional to 4th power of absolute temperature. Take the ratio P1 to P2, we get P2 equal to 4 times P1. Since P1 is 450 watt, P2 comes out to be 1800 watt. Which of the following statements are correct? Let us see the statements one by one. Statement A. Center of mass of a body always coincides with the center of gravity of the body. The statement is wrong because center of mass and center of gravity will coincide only when the object is small and it is symmetric. Coming to the second statement, center of mass of a body is the point at which the total gravitational torque on the body is 0. The statement is correct because torque provided by gravitational force is the weight of the object multiplied with perpendicular distance from the center of mass, in this case that is 0. So the torque provided by gravitational force is 0. Statement C. A couple on a body produces both translational and rotational motion. This statement is wrong because when a couple is applied on a body, it produces only rotational motion. For example, we apply couple to open the cap of a bottle or to open a tap. Coming to statement D. Mechanical advantage greater than 1 means a small effort can be used to lift a large load. This statement is correct because mechanical advantage can be defined as the output force available to input force applied. If it is greater than 1, obviously numerator is greater than the denominator, so more force is available to lift a large load. Two disks of same moment of inertia I rotating about their regular axis passing through center and perpendicular to the plane of the disk with angular velocities omega 1 and omega 2. They are brought into contact face to face. The expression for loss of energy during this process is: when the disks are brought in contact face to face, they will be losing some of their kinetic energy because of the friction between the two surfaces. First of all, applying conservation of angular momentum, we get I1 omega 1 plus I2 omega 2 equal to I1 plus I2 of omega. So the final angular velocity of the system comes out to be omega 1 plus omega 2 by 2. The initial rotational kinetic energy of the system, as both the disks have same moment of inertia, we can write the kinetic energy as half I omega square. I can take half I common. The initial kinetic energy, that is rotational, comes out to be half I times omega 1 square plus omega 2 square. The final rotational kinetic energy of the system, K final, is half into 2I omega square, that is half of 2I omega 1 plus omega 2 by 2 whole square. The loss in kinetic energy of the system, delta K, is K initial minus K final. Upon simplification, comes out to be I by 4 times omega 1 minus omega 2 whole square. Preeti reached the metro station and found that the escalator was not working. She walked up the stationary escalator in time t1. On other days, if she remains stationary on the moving escalator, the escalator takes her up in time t2. The time taken by her to walk up on the moving escalator will be: let us say the distance to be travelled is d, that is the length of the escalator. Time taken to walk up a stationary escalator is time equal to distance by velocity. So from there we get v1 equal to d by t1. Time taken for the escalator to move up is t2, that is d by v2. From there we get v2 equal to d by t2. Now the person as well as escalator both are moving in the same direction. So this time the time taken will be d by v1 plus v2. Upon simplification, we get the total time as t1 t2 by t1 plus t2. Two rods A and B of different materials are welded together as shown in figure. Their thermal conductivities are K1 and K2. The thermal conductivity of the composite rod will be: here it is important to understand that the two rods are connected in parallel. We can compare this diagram with the parallel combination of resistors, where both the resistors have same potential difference but they will be carrying different currents. If we compare this situation there, we can see the two rods are under the same temperature difference T1 T2 and they are carrying different heats. So the thermal resistance R is L by Ka. Since the two blocks are connected in parallel, the effective resistance in parallel combination 1 by R equal to 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2. So upon simplifying the values, we get K equal to K1 plus K2 by 2. Figure shows a circuit that contains three identical resistors with resistance 9 ohms each, two identical inductors with inductance 2 millihenry each, and an ideal battery 18 volts. The current through the battery just after the switch is closed is: it is important to understand the behavior of inductor and capacitor the moment the switch is closed. Inductor opposes changes in current while capacitor opposes changes in voltage. Because of this, just after the switch is closed, inductor acts as open circuit while capacitor acts as short circuit. So that the diagram can be redrawn as shown in the figure. You can see the first resistor is open circuited while the second and third resistors are connected in parallel. So the effective resistance will be R by 2. So the current flowing through the battery is E by R by 2, that is 2E by R. So that comes out to be 4 ampere. The bulk modulus of a spherical object is B. if it is subjected to uniform pressure P, the fractional decrease in radius is. You can see it is a spherical object, its volume is 4/3 pi r cube. Apply log on both sides, we get log V equal to log K plus 3 log R. Differentiating on both sides, we get delta V by V equal to 0, that is differentiation of a constant, and 3 delta R by R. So from there we have delta R by R equal to 1 by 3 delta V by V. Now write the formula of bulk modulus, B equal to P by delta V by V. So in the place of delta V by V, we can write 3 times delta R by R. So from there we get delta R by R, that is the fractional change in radius comes out to be B by 3P. If theta 1 and theta 2 be the apparent angles of dip observed in two vertical planes at right angles to each other, the true dip angle theta is given by. Let's write the relation between horizontal and vertical components of Earth's magnetic field. That comes out to be tan delta equal to BV by BH, where delta is a true dip. Now we obtain apparent dip when the dip circle is rotated with respect to magnetic meridian. So the apparent dip represented with the delta dash can be written as tan delta dash equal to tan delta by cos alpha, where alpha is the angle between dip circle and magnetic meridian. Now from the given data, we can see tan theta 1 equal to tan theta by cos alpha. From there we get cos alpha equal to tan theta cot theta 1, and tan theta 2 equal to tan theta by sin alpha, that is sin alpha equal to tan theta cot theta 2. In the second case we got sin alpha in the denominator because the two planes are right angles to each other. So cos 90 minus alpha will be sin alpha. Then squaring and adding on both sides, we get sin square alpha plus cos square alpha equal to 1 on the left hand side. So we get the formula as cot square theta equal to cot square theta 1 plus cot square theta 2. Two blocks A and B of mass 3m and m respectively are connected by massless and inextensible string. The whole system is suspended by a massless spring as shown in figure. The magnitudes of acceleration of A and B immediately after the string is cut are respectively. As you can see from the diagram, when the string is cut, block B will become a freely falling body. So the acceleration of a freely falling body is g. Now let us see the initial equilibrium condition. That is, before the string is cut, the system is in equilibrium. We can write the spring force equal to 4 mg. Now as the block B is cut, there is only block A that is connected to the spring. So the resultant acceleration will be F net by m. F net is the upward spring force minus the downward gravitational force, that is 4 mg minus 3 mg by 3m. So the acceleration comes out to be g by 3. A potentiometer is an accurate and versatile device to make electrical measurements of EMF because the method involves relation between EMF and terminal voltage of a discharging battery is given by E equal to V plus IR. Here I is the current through the circuit and R is the internal resistance of the battery. When we use voltmeter to measure the potential difference of the cell, as voltmeter is connected in the circuit, it requires some current for its working. So there is current flowing in the circuit and the voltmeter reads only the terminal voltage. But in the case of a potentiometer, when we use a potentiometer to read the EMF of the cell, we take the reading of the potentiometer when the galvanometer is reading 0, that is null deflection. Since the deflection is 0, there is no current flowing through the circuit, so there is no need of any internal resistance drop. So directly we get a potentiometer reading as the EMF of the cell. Different thermodynamic processes are indicated in the following diagram. Match the following. Please take some time to see the diagram carefully. There are 4 thermodynamic processes indicated. Let us see the processes one by one. Isobaric process, here pressure remains constant. As you can see the diagram, it is process 4. Isochoric process, volume remains constant. So it is from the diagram process 1. Isothermal process, temperature remains constant, and adiabatic process, total heat content remains constant. Both isothermal and adiabatic curves seems to be of same shape, that is a rectangular hyperbola, but we can decide between isothermal curve and adiabatic curve with the slope. The adiabatic curve having larger slope, that is more steep than the isothermal curve. So like that, process 3 represents isothermal process and process 2 represents adiabatic process. Which of the following represents a forward biased diode? See the diagram carefully for some time. A diode is said to be forward biased when P side is connected to higher potential than N side. Remember here, P side need not be having positive potential and N side need not be having negative potential. As compared to N side, P side should have larger potential. So the correct option is 2. The given electrical network is equivalent to, as you can see, it is a digital logic circuit involving logic gates. The first one is NOR gate, the second one is single input NOR gate, the third one is NOT gate. Let us see the outputs one by one. The first one is NOR gate. So the output of NOR gate is R plus NOT, that is A plus B whole bar. Now this is fed to a single input NOR gate. A single input NOR gate acts as a NOT gate. So the bar is cancelled. The output from the second gate is A plus B. Now this output A plus B is fed into a NOT gate. So bar will appear again. So the final output is A plus B whole bar.